everyone, it's Seline Shenoy, the Director of Relationship Intelligence at Say Allo, a dating app created for the intelligent dater. Today, I'm joined by dating coach and expert on relationship psychology, Monica Parikh. Monica, so great to have you with us today. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me, Seline. I'm so excited to be here.
We're looking forward to learning more about you and what you have to share. We're going to be talking about one of the most common complaints that daters have, and that is, why do I keep attracting the wrong type of person? Whether they're narcissists, players, emotionally unavailable types, and everything in between. So it's going to be great to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's such a great question because it does seem that we all have a type. And there's something in relationship psychology called repetition compulsion. And what that means is that we kind of are almost hardwired. Our subconscious is the 95% driver of how we behave. So we may think that we're making rational, conscious decisions, but it's actually our subconscious that is actually driving us to certain outcomes. And a lot of times, I think, in terms of the question you asked, we seek out the familiar. So if you seek out narcissists, it's very possible that one or both of your parents have narcissistic tendencies. Same thing if you are very attracted to emotionally unavailable people, it's more likely than not that one of your parents was deeply emotionally unavailable, and that style of loving and connection feels really normal to you and it feels good. So even though you think you're unhappy, something in your subconscious is kind of driving you to seek that type of partnership.
Yeah, I think most people tend to think that they have a certain physical type and they're like, I like a person who's tall or has blue eyes or whatever, not realizing that there's so many other things that are coming into play that are going on beneath the surface. And like you said, the subconscious mind plays a big role in it, right?
Yeah, so part of what evolutionary psychology is actually priming us to do is that we are supposed to have this relationship that feels familiar, experience a breakup that causes us an enormous amount of psychological pain, and then use that experience to further our own personal development and growth. We would go work with a psychologist or a coach who would actually help us understand our childhood at a deeper level, help us heal some of that woundedness that compels us to keep basically repeating the same experience over and over, and then choose something that would be unfamiliar. And sometimes even just choosing something unfamiliar can feel really uncomfortable. If you choose someone who's very kind, who's very present, who's very stable, who's very balanced, that may also bring up certain feelings of unworthiness or shame that have to kind of get healed as well.
That's interesting. So it's kind of like weaning off sugar, right? And going towards the good stuff like vegetables and fruits.
A little bit, yeah. I think the number one thing is to have awareness. So recently, something that my clients have been telling me over and over, and it really kind of tickles me, is, especially people, once they've worked with me, they see their patterns of behavior, and that's just awareness. Mm-hmm. And then, they'll meet somebody and they feel an enormous amount of chemistry and attraction to them. And they'll say, but something in me feels like this is familiar. This is the thing I'm always attracted to. Or I've dated this guy already 10 times over, and I know how that story ends. And so, when I hear that, when people are starting to have that level of recognition, then I say, okay, you know what? They're waking up to basically their own subconscious, and they're beginning to heal that, and they're beginning to form new patterns of behavior or new even pathways in their brain to think about a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's super important. Awareness is, you got to have that, right? So people who are, in the dating market, and they're trying to find compatible matches. Like, how do they know what's the difference between someone who they're not compatible with and versus someone who's just not relationship material, someone who just doesn't have the emotional bandwidth for a healthy relationship?
Yeah, when I think about compatibility, to me, compatibility is, do we spend our free time in a similar way? If one person loves to travel and the other person loves to watch Netflix at home, over a long period of time, you're going to have conflict. Similarly, compatibility could be finances. If one person's a saver and one person's a spender, you're probably going to have issues. Ambition levels. If somebody is really driven and they want to have a lot of success, and the other person is like, I'm just kind of happy just being happy, you're probably going to have, incompatibilities. When we talk about somebody who's not relationship material, I think about more like big red flags. Things like addictions. Do they have alcohol or substance abuse addictions? Um, do they have a long pattern of very short-term relationships? What's their attachment style? Are they able to go into long-term partnerships and kind of be secure in them? Or are they always running out of them or looking for something like exciting and short-term that they then leave and then start a new one? And some of that is rooted in childhood. So you do want to understand, what is the childhood that this person came from? What is the family structure like for them? What are their family members like? Because, when you get into a relationship with someone, you are almost getting into a relationship with their entire family and the genes of multiple generations. So you
Yeah.
just want to have an understanding of those issues. But that's what I think about more in terms of like, this person is probably not going to be relationship material,
Right.
including one of the big things I always encourage my clients to ask is, will this person clean up their own side of the street? Meaning every relationship is going to get into crisis or conflict at some point. That's really natural. But can you have a real conversation with this person where both people are taking ownership of the problems in the relationship and saying, okay, you know what, let's fix this together? Or do you have somebody who's a little bit more narcissistic, where they're like, all the problems are about you and you have to fix you, and I'm not going to go to a therapist, I'm not going to do any personal transformation work, I don't need that. When you have somebody who has a personality like that, you're just going to have a very difficult time having a healthy, relationship that's growing and evolving and changing and getting deeper over time.
Okay, and so from a dating perspective, someone could be compatible on the surface level, but that person may not be emotionally healthy. So I think it's worth asking those questions that you mentioned, right? To make sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something that I suggest for all my clients is go slow. We live in a world now that's so full of technology that you
Right.
can create an image of who you want to be in the world that may be
Hmm.
very different than the person that you actually are.
Hmm.
And sometimes what happens is we meet somebody and they're really attractive to us and there's a lot of chemistry, and we quickly go into sort of romantic fantasy,
Hmm.
and we may even have sex with them very early on. And for women especially, sex releases all sorts of bonding chemicals like oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. So what that means is then once you've bonded to somebody, it's really hard to take an objective look and say, is this an emotionally healthy person? Are they a physically healthy person? Are they stable? Are they financially, keeping their finances in order? Like the things that you really would need for a very long-term healthy relationship. And
Hmm.
so what I always say is go as slow as you possibly can, build friendship first. Like if you can have a solid friendship with another person, you're over time really going to see who the character of this person is, and you'll see them through good and bad times. And you
Mhm.
also, you just want to know, is this going to be somebody who's going to stay with me if I get sick, if a parent dies or gets ill, if I lose a job? Is this person going to be able to ride storms, or are they going to leave at the first moment of emotional distress?
Right, right. That's absolutely essential, but that's not what we see in movies and, and the lyrics of songs. We're not conditioned to think in that way. It seems unromantic to think about all of that in the beginning, and I think people just need to change their mindset, right?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we're in love with the Hollywood fantasy of the wedding.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
one of the things I talk about in my business a lot is that we spend so much time preparing for the wedding that we forget to prepare for the marriage. And
Hmm.
look at like the statistical trends of marriage. The statistics are more than 50% of people end up divorced. And of those who stay married, about 7 out of 10 report being unhappy.
Okay.
So, when you think about that
Very
statistically,
dismal.
it's not only dismal, but if you have children also, your children are learning the behaviors of
Mm,
their parents.
right,
And
yeah.
so you're setting up generationally, a future where people are not connecting and they're feeling lonely. And, a big part of what I want to do is say, you know what, we need to have all these skills, and they're really important skills of how to fight fair, how to create boundaries within relationships, how to understand interdependency versus codependency, which is I need a ton of friends, I need a ton of activities, I need my own life purpose. And this person is part of that, but not the entire sum and substance of that.
Right, you
So
don't need
we
them
have
to
to
complete you.
that whole line from Jerry Maguire,
Yeah,
you
it's
know
just
what?
mess everyone up.
That whole thing, like Renee Zellweger and Tom Cruise should have been fired for that alone, because that messed
Or the
everybody
script
up.
writers.
Right, the script writers actually should have just deleted that from the scene. And it should have just been like, you're the 20% cherry on top that makes me smile at the end of the day, but I'm already super happy and I've got
Hey,
lots of stuff going
it's a 90s rom-com, so
on. Maybe I'll write the 2020 version of like
yeah.
the independent spirited woman who, like, on top of everything has a great guy.
Right, right. Okay, and my last question is, so for daters out there who are, looking for that special someone, what can they do to avoid these types? Do you have any quick tips?
I think that the stronger your boundaries are, the better. And to me, boundary setting is just super early, like, don't call me after 10, or no, I'm not going to go over to your house and Netflix because I don't know you yet. You know,
Especially now.
especially now with COVID,
Yeah.
there's so much boundary setting that has to happen. But like, I also think it's just understanding your worth. So a big part of like my curriculum for women is like building your self-esteem and your level of confidence, where you're raising the bar. You're saying like, no, if you want to date me, you know what, you're going to have to take me out, plan something in advance, call me on the phone every day before that time happens.
Hmm.
That you're going to have to treat me like I'm extremely valuable and special, because that's what I deserve. So, the more that we can learn sort of the skills of dating and relationships and move away from the kind of quick swipe left, swipe right, get rid of somebody, go again, I don't think it's very fulfilling. It's a little bit like fast food relationships to me.
Right, right. And yeah, that's really important. I think and I think more and more women need to realize that they need to have standards because if there are women out there who don't have standards, they're kind of spoiling the guys, and that's what I've seen
Oh, 100%.
happening. I've seen that happening, unfortunately.
100. I think, and I'm a feminist, I practiced law for 20 years. I'm building my own business. I'm super independent. I think that when you have sex with a stranger on the first date, you're taking your own life at risk. You're putting yourself in a very dangerous position emotionally and physically. And you're also telling the other person on the other side of the table, you don't have to do very much to prove to me that you are cherishing my feelings, that you really value me as a woman. And I feel like as women, the more that we raise our voices and say, you know what, my time and energy is valuable to me and I want to be treated a certain way. And that we collectively as women come together and raise the standard of behavior by being intolerant to anything that comes less than that.
Right, yeah. And I think that's with the Me Too movement, uh, I think we've started that shift in consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a super exciting time
Yeah.
because really you can feel that there's a massive shift in consciousness happening. But to me, when I think about a real shift in consciousness, that's grounded in education, meaning how do we de escalate conflict? What's my particular attachment style? What do I need to know about the way that I love and relate? How do I need to fix certain behaviors that are not leading me to success? And also just seeing, personal transformation work, whether that's in therapy or coaching or in support group as normal, like not as a sign of failure, but as a sign of, I want to have a healthy relationship. And for me to do that, I have to change me as opposed to trying to change society and trying to change, all the men in the world. That
Mhm.
if I change myself, that's enough.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such an empowering message, Monica. Thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing. I personally learned a lot from you
Good.
today, and I'm sure
Thank you
those
for having
watching, they feel the same way. Could you please share your website and other information with us?
Yeah, sure. So the best place to contact me is through my website. My business is called School of Love NYC. So it's www.schooloflovenyc.com. Although I'm based in New York City, I have a global audience from people around the world, and a curriculum that I teach, that I connect people from around the world anonymously and confidentially. And I actually teach the skills of dating and relationships from a psychologically healthy perspective.
Great. We appreciate you making time to speak with us today, Monica.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated you, Seline. I really appreciated the invitation to come here.
Okay, so for everyone out there, if you want more dating and relationship advice, please visit us at justsayallo.com. Bye.